of course, living there in the wilderness after they come out of Egypt. And Parsha BaMidbar is Numbers chapter 1 and verse 1 all the way to Numbers chapter 4 and verse 20. Of course, that is way, way, way too many verses to deal with in one night, so we're not going to deal with all of those. But I thought we might pick up first here in Numbers chapter 3 and verse 42, Numbers 3:42. And I think we've actually talked about this maybe in the past, but I don't know how much time we've spent there. But this passage here is about something called Pidyon Haben. Pidyon Haben. Pidyon Haben is, Haben is the son, and Pidyon is redemption, the redemption of the son. And so over here in Numbers chapter 3 and verse 42, it says, "And Moshe numbered, as the Lord commanded him, all the firstborn among the children of Israel. And all the firstborn males, by the number of names, from a month old and upward, of those that were numbered of them, were 22,213. And the Lord spake unto Moshe, saying, Take the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and the cattle of the Levites instead of their cattle, and the Levites shall be mine. I am the Lord. And for those that are to be redeemed of the 213 of the firstborn of the children of Israel, which are more than the Levites, thou shalt even take 5 shekels apiece by the poll. After the shekel of the sanctuary shalt thou take them. The shekel is 20 gerahs. And thou shalt give the money wherewith the odd number of them is to be redeemed unto Aaron and to his sons. And Moshe took the redemption money of them that were over and above them that were redeemed by the Levites." Of the firstborn of the children of Israel took he the money, 1,365 shekels, after the shekel of the sanctuary. And Moshe gave the money of them that were redeemed unto Aaron and to his sons, according to the word of the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moshe. Now, one of the things that I wanted to get into, and we've actually been talking a little bit about it lately in various sermons, but we've been talking a little bit about how important the congregation of God's people is, how important the people of the congregation is. And when we talk about how important they are, isn't it interesting that God wanted every single one of them to be redeemed down to the very last of the firstborn? And I think it's one of those things where sometimes we think, well, it doesn't really matter what people do in the congregation. It doesn't matter whether they stand out. As long as they're warming a pew, that's all right. And I really don't see that from scriptures. I see actually something else. God is always wanting his people to accomplish something for him. And so he's always into counting down to the very last person that's there. When he talks about redemption, he's always talking about redeeming to the very last person that's there. When he said here that what he would do is, he said, for every one of the firstborn among the congregation, he said, if there's an equal number of Levites, then we'll just call it even. But there wasn't, and so they had to redeem those other people that were beyond the number of firstborns that the Levites could make up for. And so again, we see this idea that God is interested in even the smallest number of people, because it only ended up being, I think it was 273 or something like that they had to redeem. But again, it just shows that God is interested in everyone, not just some of the people. And then he goes on to give the duties of the Levites over in Numbers chapter 4, and I thought we might start there in Numbers chapter 4, and beginning in verse 1. The Word of God says, And the Lord spake unto Moshe and unto Aaron, saying, Take the sum of the sons of Kohath among the sons of Levi after their families by the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward, even until 50 years old, all that enter into the host, to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. This shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. And when the camp setteth forward, Aaron shall come and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil, and cover the ark of the testimony with it, and shall put thereon the covering of badger skins, and shall spread over it a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put in the staves thereof, and upon the table of showbread they shall spread a cloth of blue, and put thereon the dishes, and the spoons, and the bowls, and the covers to cover withal, and the continual bread shall be thereon. By the way, honey, do we still have all those coverings from my tabernacle? I'm thinking that's one thing I probably still have left. If so, I could preach a message on the coverings, which I think you guys would enjoy. But I used to have a full-size 4-by-8-foot tabernacle, and I used to have the coverings for that tabernacle. And you say, why is that important? Because every single one of these things that God does is pointing to something that's heavenly, something that He is doing. And so even the coverings that covered over the tabernacle, and I believe there were 5 coverings, they're all very important as far as what they symbolize. And so I'll try to see if I can find those coverings. I know they used to be in the bottom of our closet, but I don't know where they got moved to. They might have got thrown away. I don't know. I know some of you know my big old tabernacle I had got turned into toothpicks on a Halloween night about 10 years ago. And that was probably one of the most discouraging nights I can ever remember. And you say, why? Because I preached through that. I saw so many people saved and so many people surrender to God, and so many people make decisions because of messages they heard from that tabernacle. And I miss having that thing. It was, your pastor used to preach revival meetings with that tabernacle, and used to preach mission conference messages with that tabernacle, and it was a lot of fun. Got it from a pastor who, when he had passed away, his widow had it down in Texas, and she put it online about it, and she said, I'm looking for somebody that'll use it to preach from it. And I contacted her and I said, what do you want for it? And it took her a month to call me back and say, the Lord said, I can't sell it to you. You just have to pay for the shipping. And it cost me almost $100 to ship it because it came in 2 big wood crates. And it would take me about usually 2 hours to build it and about an hour to put it away. But it was such a blessing to preach from that thing. So maybe one of these days I'll get another, even if I get a miniature one, so that I can preach from that again. All right, anyway, it says, notice, I want you to notice that it says 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old. We should notice those kind of things because numbers are important, right? Now, I find it interesting, and I hope that you will find it interesting, that when we first look at these numbers, this is the first time God mentions it, and He says that He wants them to serve from 30 to 50. It's not going to be true later on. By King David's day, they're going to start serving when they're 20, all the way until they're 60, I believe it is. So He's going to expand that timeline for them. I almost wonder if the reason why God limited it at the beginning, and this is pure speculation, but I just want you to think about it because God always gives us numbers and details for a reason. I'm wondering if when they first started having the tabernacle and having all the furniture and started building it and carrying it and moving it and all that, if God was trying to make sure that everybody that was handling it was a very mature person, because He wanted to get it in their heads that they're actually being a spiritual leader, they're setting the example for other people. And even though God believes that people 20 years old and upward are to be held accountable, maybe at that point He wasn't ready to have 20-year-olds in ministry. Because later on, He is going to have 20-year-olds old in ministry, but not at this point. At this point, it's only going to be 30 years old, 30 to is it 50? Yeah, 30 to 50. And like I say, I believe it gets changed from 20 to 60 later on during King David's time. And so it may be that by that time, you've had generations of people establishing to their kids what it means to be in ministry and how important it is that when we represent God before the people, it's important about what we say and what we do and how we act, and that we carry ourselves as sober-minded and serious-minded. And so that gave them time for all those things to kind of come into play before they actually opened it up and allowed more people to serve. It also could be related to, as far as why they bump it to 60, could be just related because they didn't have enough workers. They weren't making it long enough so they had to open up even the other end where they kept workers for a longer period of time. Of course, they're probably not doing all the physical labors at 60 that they might have been doing when they were 20 or 30, but each one of them had a duty, had a responsibility. And so he says, from 30 years old upward even until 50 years old, all that enter into the host to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation, this shall be the servants of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. And when the camp setteth forward, Aaron shall come, and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil, and cover the ark of testimony with it. And they shall put thereon the coverings of badger skins, and shall spread over it a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put in the staves thereof. And upon the table of showbread they shall spread a cloth of blue, and put thereon the dishes, and the spoons, and the bowls, and the covers to cover withal, and the continual bread shall be thereon, and they shall spread upon them a cloth of scarlet, and cover the same with a covering of badger skins, and shall put in the staves thereof. And they shall take a cloth of blue, and cover the candlestick of the light, and his lamps, and his tongs, and his snuff dishes, and all the oil vessels thereof, wherewith they minister unto it. And they shall put it and all the vessels thereof with a covering of badger skins, and shall put it upon a bar. Now, it's interesting because if you don't know, all these skins that are talked about in the different colors are all found on the roof of the tabernacle when it's set up. But when it's not set up, they actually divide out these curtains and place them over all of this important holy furniture. Which again means that there's probably symbolism there, right? The fact that they're taking these curtains apart, and some people say, well, are they large curtains? Yes, but realize that they're a lot like if you've ever built a tent today, and some of you have had the experience of building Brother John's tent out there at the Boston Commons tent meeting. When we build it, we literally are taking 4 sections or 6 sections of tent, and we're taking big ropes and we're weaving it through, and then grabbing another rope and weaving it through, and then grabbing another rope, and you're kind of braiding all these ropes together to hold all the pieces together, and that's what keeps the rain out. My suspicions, because I've never seen anybody who actually goes into the detail on these curtains, but I think that's probably how it was done. They were probably already doing stuff like that in those days with all these skins that they were using, but they were of various colors, and so when they would take them apart, they would have these scarlet skins that there might be 6 or 8 of them, and they could use them for covering furniture, they could use them for covering various things, and again, what did it do? It protected them from the elements while they're traveling with them. But we notice that in each one, it's not the same skin that they're covering with. Sometimes it's the blue one, sometimes it's the red one, sometimes it's the badger skins, which some people debate about, and they say, no, that's dolphin skins. I don't know. We could get into more of the debates about what some of these skins are, but there are a lot of debates out there, and your pastor is quite familiar with many of them. As a matter of fact, sometimes it is just frustrating to see all the arguments out there, because I think some people are into the argument for the sake of argument, if you know what I mean. I was on there looking at the Parsha today, and there was a guy arguing that the Parsha should not be called Parsha BaMidbar. It should be called Parsha B hyphen Midbar. And I'm like, so what's your point, buddy? What he's trying to say is, I'm correct and you're not. And the reason why he's saying that is because the ba that comes at the beginning, it makes the sound of a BA, and that's why they put it on there as Parsha BaMidbar. But he's saying, well, it's technically not there. You're right, the letter is not there, but you do make that sound. So do you want people to say it correctly or not? And what I'm saying is there's some people out there just out for argument's sake. They're actually not trying to learn. They're not trying to understand God. And hopefully that's not the kind of people we are, because we don't want to be the people that are just there argumentative with God. No, we want to learn from God. We want to understand His ways. We want Him to explain to us, why did He set it up these ways? Why did He give us these colors? Why did He set it up in such an order as He did? And like I say, I think there's a lot to be learned from the things that are here. He goes on to say, let's see, where did I stop here? Was I in 9? Okay, and they shall take a cloth of blue, cover the candlestick of the light, and his lamps, and his tongs, and his snuff dishes, and all the oil vessels thereof, wherewith they minister unto it, and they shall put it and all the vessels thereof within a covering of badger skins, and shall put it upon a bar, and upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue, and cover it with a covering of badger skins, and shall put the staves thereof. And of course, we're talking now about the table of incense, which we know is a symbol of the prayers of the saints. And we probably will get into a message on that one of these days, because I got all my tabernacle furniture upstairs that wants to come out and be seen. And so we'll probably do that again one of these days soon. But why I'm going through all this detail is I saw all this happening this week, except it wasn't tabernacle furniture. It was the guys out here working on our parking lot. And I thought about how people could say, well, how come I don't get to do X or Y or Z? And I'm glad to say that when I was out there watching all these people work, none of them were saying that. Everybody realized that their role was important, even though maybe some roles are more high profile than others. The guy that drove up the biggest semi out here, he had a long semi out here, a big long trailer that he was hauling, and that was that machine that grinds up the road. It had a big drum on it that was, I don't know, I bet it was probably 8 feet long, probably about maybe 4 foot tall, and spinning underneath the machine. That's what actually had teeth all over it, and it was grinding up the pavement. The guy who drove that semi was also the one who drove the machine, because he's a CDL driver. But you know what was interesting about it? He wasn't the one that ran the machine, he drove the machine. And so what I mean is, he would be actually going across the parking lot with it, and it has that big old rubber mat that runs up that picks up all the junk that it's grinding up and brings it up that mat and dumps it into a truck. His job is to steer it straight. His job is to make sure that mat doesn't hit anything. Make sure that it gets the materials into there, but that's all he's doing. There's another guy standing alongside of the machine who's actually running, it looks like a little Xbox that he's operating down here, and he's the one that's telling the grinder to go down, to chew it up, come up maybe a little bit, maybe get more aggressive with it, get less aggressive. I mean, he had lots and lots of buttons to play with and to choose from. And what I'm saying is, that's a lot like the Church of God. All those jobs are important. I mean, yeah, the guy who drives the biggest truck up here, is that impressive to see a guy drive a big, long, 120-foot long truck? Yeah, absolutely. But there was another guy that was running around here, and he was such a nice young man. I would guess he was in his mid to late 20s, and a Spanish fellow, but once they started grinding up and all that, well, the machine couldn't get up next to the building because it just can't, not without damaging anything. So he was taking a shovel, and he was running around out here, and when they were grinding up along where the parking lot stops used to be on the other side of the parking lot, he was over there with a shovel and a pick, and he was picking the blacktop and throwing it into the stack so that they could run it through that machine and mill it up. And he was just running all the way around the parking lot for almost the entire time. And you go, man, isn't that a bummer to have to do something like that? No, it's such an important job. Somebody has to do it. And I guess what I'm trying to say to you is, sometimes when we get in the church and we think, well, I want the job where everybody looks at me and I'm the one answering all the questions and everybody goes, man, they know everything. And that may sound all right to you. But honestly, all the jobs need to get done. And all of them are important to God. And just like we read through here, and we didn't even get to the end of this yet, but it goes through all the detail about what everybody's required to do. You realize there are some people that never get to line up all this stuff. All they get to do is grab the pole, throw it up to this position, and carry. And when they get tired, somebody else comes and swaps out, grabs the poles from them, and they carry. And then when they get about 10 miles down the road, somebody grabs the poles from them, and they carry. And that's probably not very glorious. I mean, you do get closer to the tabernacle furniture than some people do. But what I'm saying is, all those jobs are important. Just as I was watching all these guys out here, and like I say, some of them you wouldn't think they'd have all that glorious a job. The guy was smiling almost the whole time, that young man. I kept talking to him because he just seemed so friendly, and he's just kind of filling in wherever he needs to be, but it's just little jobs, but they all need to be done. And he's not complaining about it. He's just doing his job. By the way, what I did hear about Poblaki, I did not know, is they're a employee-owned company. So all those workers out there have stock in the company, so when the company makes money, guess who makes money? They do. That could motivate you a little bit, couldn't it? Can I say that Bethel Midrash is a employee-owned company? You say, what do you mean? I mean all the volunteers here, this is your place. I don't know if you ever think about this, although when we bought this building, your pastor and his wife were on the mortgage. Now that it's paid off, do you know who owns this? You guys do. Even though we were on the mortgage when we were paying a mortgage, it's now Bethel Midrash's place. So if you're a member of the place, you have 1/30th ownership in this place. And so you ought to realize that when you do things to further the service of God here, you're doing it to even your own benefit. In other words, for the sake of God, we do these things. But we're part of this congregation. It's not like we're doing it so that, oh man, if I do that, then they get all the credit. Does it really matter? It's God's house, but He's chosen us to be the ones that attend here. He's chosen us to be the ones that clean here. He's chosen us the ones that keep up the yard here. And that's a blessing, by the way. Whoever's mowing the yard lately, I don't know if it's been you or I know Amber did one time. I know it's been several different people, but I'm grateful for all that. Because all that is a testimony to the community about us. By the way, I had a bunch of people coming by yesterday throughout the time that all those people were here, and you know what they're doing? Wow, look, you guys are putting in a new parking lot? When we were doing the new roof on the back, putting that white steel roof on the back, we had all kinds of people that came by continually when John Sasser and I were here and some of you others were here up there working on the roof, and they were saying, we want to thank you for making this place beautiful instead of being the eyesore in the neighborhood that it's been for about 30 years. And that is wonderful to hear that. And yesterday, like I say, I had an 80-year-old man come up here. He could hardly stand up straight. He was with a cane and he's walking like this. And he looks at it. I said, it's looking nice, isn't it? He goes, yeah, it's looking really nice. He made his way. He had walked all the way down from the apartment because he saw all the machines, but he wanted to come down and see what they were doing. And he was so happy to see us making the place nice. I realize that we're not doing it for the glory of man, but at the same time, the things that we do here and how we keep this place, they do set a testimony to this community. Just like when we first came here, and some of you will remember this, I know Carlos may remember it, and I know Rachel would because she's tall. When we first bought this place and we walked in through those doors, do you remember the cobwebs? I do, because every time I went through the doors, my head was covered in cobwebs. Every door in the entire place. Because apparently the 75-year-old people that were going to church here couldn't see them. So every time I walked through a doorway, I was covered in spider webs all the time, and that was really annoying. I was like, man, how can they not see this stuff? Let's clean this up. Let's get it out of here. That's how, by the way, that room down in the back corner over here got the name Shelob's Lair, because that room was not like that. It didn't have just the cobwebs over the doorway. It was the entire room. You couldn't even lay down on the floor and crawl through without getting cobwebs on you, because the entire room was cobwebs everywhere. I mean, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, in all directions. And I just praise the Lord for what God's been doing here, how He stirred up some people. I'm trying to remember, do you remember now who that was? Was that, I think it was Doug Jersick, if I remember right. What a blessing. Dr. Doug, by the way, earned PhD. Used to be a member here. But he said, Pastor, would it be all right if I cleaned up Shelob's Lair for you? I said, absolutely. That would be wonderful. And he went down there and, I don't know, spent probably 3 days, 4 days, cleaning out all the cobwebs, cleaning from ceiling to floor, cleaning wall to wall. I didn't recognize it when I went in there. I affectionately call it Shelob's Lair now because of the memories, not because it's an awful room to be in anymore, but just because of what it looked like when Dr. Doug went in there to clean it up for us. And I guess what I want to do is motivate you that we're all together as one people.
Amen.
There's nobody that gets more glory or less glory or whatever. We're all servants of the Most High God. He has work here to be done. He has servants. And it's not like you're just on the roll, and the reason why you're on the roll is so you can say, I'm a part of this. No, you're on the roll for a reason. Because every time we set up and take down, every time we have a service, all that becomes our responsibilities. Just like when they would set up the tabernacle, somebody has to come in and turn on the PA system. Somebody has to come in and turn on the speakers. Somebody has to come in and turn on the lights. Somebody has to turn off the lights. Somebody has to close the doors. Somebody has to put up the wood, or by the way, the shark keeps getting out. He got out again the other day. I'm trying to remember where he went this time. Didn't he get out? I think actually he got over by the stairs, almost went down the stairs over here. And actually the other day somebody left this door open and he got over to this stairs and tried going down the stairs. So I mean, he's getting lots of opportunities lately. But this is our place. And so if you're here last, just take it as God's given me this opportunity to serve. I'm going to get this place prepped to close up for the night. And we're going to keep Mr. Shark in here because he's expensive. And by the way, if you let him out and he gets broken, he can't vacuum this room. And he is a servant who never complains. He bumps into chairs all night long, about 1,000 times in the hour and a half that he runs. And if you've never been here for that, I've been here many times. When he turns on at midnight. There's many times I don't leave here till 3 a.m. when I'm working on the building. He turns on at midnight, and he turns off at 1:30 in the morning, every day. He runs for 90 straight minutes, provided that he's not let out. Provided that he's not allowed to get to the steps or any other way that he can do Dukes of Hazzard stuff. And he does like to do Dukes of Hazzard. I don't know where he gets that at. That must be in his programming. I'm not sure. But I have seen him in some strange places. But just notice from this passage all the way through that he goes through and talks about all their burdens and all their duties and what their requirements are. He goes on to talk about over in 32, he talks about the pillars, and some of you know this, but there was a bunch of pillars down both sides on the outside of the tabernacle that had curtains hanging on them. Those pillars are sitting on top of silver sockets. That's the first thing they had to do. They had to go out there and set the silver sockets in the ground. Once they would do that, they would set the pillars on top of the sockets, and those are, they've got brass pillars. And then on top of that, they have little taches that actually hold the curtains up. And those pillars are holding the curtains up like this. Those guys had to come in, and that's one of the first things that has to be set up. Why? Because you're not allowed to see what's going on as they build the tabernacle, as they build all that other stuff. It is closed off to the world, except for those who have business there. Closed off from the world. But that was their duty. Their duty was to come in and set up those curtains for what purpose? So the rest of the guys could do their job. Everybody has their duty. And I don't know, when I look at that and think about how much organization was, I mean, they were definitely a professional army. No doubt about it. It was a professional army that was moving every day. They would pick up that stuff, move it to another place, set it up again, tear it down a day later, a week later. Whenever the glory of God raised up off of that place, they knew it was time to move, and all the guys would go into their mode of, okay, let's take it down. When the cloud of God would rest upon a place, okay, it's time to set it up again. But they weren't going, oh my, do we have to do this again? No, that was their privilege to serve God in that fashion, whatever that fashion was. It might be the guy that's out there picking all the the blacktop. And I'm telling you, why he did that is because the machine was running along. It couldn't see it under the grass. I didn't even realize it was under the grass, but where those stops were at, the blacktop went past where the stops were. So when they took a forklift and they lifted up all those stops out of the ground and then moved them even further, when they did that, there was grass that was grown over the blacktop where you couldn't even see it. I didn't know it was there. But that young man realized it was there, and he started picking it and pulling it into the middle for them to bust it up and chop it up. And you say, did he have to do that? I bet he could get away with it if he'd left it under the grass. But again, we're the children of the Most High God. Are we looking to get away with not doing something? No. We want to serve God well. We want to hear someday, well done, thou good and faithful servant. I don't know about you, I want to have some kind of rewards, not so that I can hold on to those. I want to have something to give to God that says, this is how much I love you. Because that day is going to come. We're going to have an opportunity, and I'm hoping that it's not going to be an empty thing where we just say, God, I love you. And he goes, how much? And I go, well, I didn't do a whole lot, but I really love you. No, let's hope that we've actually got something that we can hold on that's tangible, that God could reward us. Why? Because we were faithful. And then we have something to hand back to God and say, this is how much I love you. I think that's what this Parsha is about today, is how important that is. Now, as you know, sometimes it takes little numbers, sometimes it takes big numbers of people. I was thinking about all the different examples, and we don't have time to go into them because I want to end here, but David's motley crew that you've heard me talk about before, we call them what? The 3D army? Because they were distressed, they were discontented, and they were in debt. So the 3D army, right? Three-dimensional. They had 3 dimensions. If you're going to join him, you got to be in one of these groups. Discontented, distressed, in debt. But those guys did great things. They fought against the Philistines. They fought on behalf of God. There was times when they didn't even want to do the right thing, and their leader, David, motivated them to do the right thing. But they never stopped fighting. They never stopped doing what they were created for, commanded to do. They became a very powerful army that did a lot of good for the Israelites. And I'm just saying, we can also be that same thing, but we got to understand that we have a role, even if it doesn't get assigned to you. It doesn't have to get assigned to you. Yesterday, you would think that there would be a foreman there standing around going, do this, you do that, you do that. I didn't see any of that. I saw a bunch of people that basically were looking around, looking for what the duties were, and them jumping on it. Whatever their skill set was, if they had the skill set, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the other thing. You all know what your skill sets are. You know what you can accomplish here. And I know some of us can do more. I get that. I'm understanding why at 60 some of them are going to step down from being the guy who carries all this stuff and does all that. It doesn't mean they're going to stop being a Levite. But some of their roles might change, right? Because they're no longer able to, they're no longer qualified to do some of that stuff. I don't know about you, I'm praying, Brother Tom, that the Lord will give me another 20 good years. I really am. I've been excited about this intermittent fasting I've been doing. As of this morning, I'm down 15 pounds. And that's, I don't know if you could see it, but I can feel it. My energy's coming back, and I'm excited about that. But I'm not losing weight for the sake of losing weight. I want to get more done. Right. And part of getting more done is being in good health so that I can get more done, so that I've got more energy, so I've got more activity of things that I can do. I've been on the ladder this week multiple days, and I can actually tell you I've been on the ladder because my left ankle is really, really sore from going up and down and up and down. But got some more cameras up. Going to get some more done over in here. Been working on the electrical in the basement, but part of being healthy is, again, even that, right? It's being able to do more. Being able to work hard, being able to be active, being able to try to please God with this little time we have on the earth, because it is a little time. I am sure Brother Tom can't believe that he's gotten to 80, is it 2 now? 81. Amen.
Next month, 82.
Yeah. My mom next month turns 80. 80. Mom turns 80. My mom is about to turn 80. And I actually said that today in front of some nurses, and they go, your mom is 80? Yeah. Well, she looks like me, is why they can't believe she's 80, because she still has that young-looking skin. But, yes. But it just takes a few. Nehemiah chapter 3, we talked about that, I know, a few months ago. But them building the walls, realized that every one of them did something there. Every one of them took on a section. Maybe they weren't able to know how to make mortar and all that. Maybe they were just a carrier, carrying blocks, because that was something they could do. But we all have something that God wants us to do. Everybody has something. Amen. All right, thank you for joining us online.